All right, everybody, welcome to our AMA with Dr. Kara McDonald from all the way from California this evening, her time, morning Korea time. So thank you for joining us, Kara.
Thank you for inviting me, and I'm happy to virtually and vicariously be in Korea.
So I was wondering, could you tell us a little bit about how you got involved in ELT in the first place?
I started off as a foreign language teacher with respect to teaching Spanish and then doing interpretation, translation for medical Spanish interpretation here in the US. As I moved overseas, there was less demand, obviously, for my my interest in Spanish as a foreign language instruction. And so I went and did another degree, got an MA TESOL, and from there I moved into teaching English as a foreign language, and the paths emerged from there.
All right, and did you immediately come to Korea, or did you go somewhere else first to teach EFR?
I really have had a really fortunate life. I grew up partially, based in the US, but I had experiences in Brazil as a child, Mexico, and then as an adult, Mexico, Spain, and Australia, and some other countries. And I saw the value or the industry that was demanding English as a foreign language. And I realized that maybe I could sort of redirect my foreign language teaching principles and get other training and move into English language teaching, and that's what I did. Okay. And then, yes, I did end up in Korea.
Why did you choose Korea?
I was in Australia at the moment, which is basically Asia, even though you wouldn't think it. Australia is a large continent, but they have a large influence through Asia. I had connections to Indonesia, Japan, different things, and obviously some informal connections to Korea. And I applied to a couple countries, and I got a very good offer from the University of Oregon, and there I ended up in Korea.
Cool. How long were you actually here? I feel like it was forever, but I know it wasn't actually that long, right?
No, it was just under 5 years. It was just under 5 years, but it was a very significant part of my formative professional development. I have like maybe 3 chunks that I could describe, and the second one would really be Korea in the way it informed me as a professional.
Could you tell us a little bit more about that? How has Korea informed you as a professional?
I guess if we could summarize maybe me landing in Australia, teaching English as a foreign language. Yes, I'm an American, but yes, I was a foreigner. It really gave me a foundation of understanding the demand for English language teaching at various levels, at a commercial level, meaning private industry, as well as university level, as well as K through 12. When I was hired in Korea, in the interview, they told me I was hired because of those 3 things. And I didn't even realize I had those 3 factors or sectors in my experience because I was so young. I was mid-30s. But when I got to Korea, I never left those 3 sectors. I always worked part-time in the kindergarten. I volunteered in the K through 12. I worked in a university in higher ed and teacher training, but that was a really influential period for me because I came to understand another country's English language teaching dynamics, right? Each year is different because you have different politics, you have different funding, you have different things, right? And you have to adjust.
Wow, yeah, that's very true. I think everybody here can definitely relate to the need for constant adjustment.
Yeah, and it was very influential for me as an adult that I bring now to my current job, understanding that top-down policy is extremely informative, and you need to understand top-down policy. You can't just assume that you live in one institute or one classroom. Korea informed me very well for working for the US government.
So
In a different way, you know what I mean? In terms of an abstract way.
and how, like, tell us a little bit about what you're doing now. How did that flow from your experience in Korea? What exactly are you doing, and what have you learned? What have you done lately?
I've been in the US now, working for a foreign language institute, a military training institute, for all services of the US. Plus, we do sometimes train foreign nationals that we also accept. I mainly am in teacher training. I've been in teacher training in 3 different domains. But if we wanted to break that down, we would call it in-service training. So when you're within an institute or within a university, you have faculty that may need training at various times. And I've moved from just basic pedagogical training to technology training to curriculum. You know, we can think about, right? So once you have a cadre of trained and ready faculty, the industry changes over time, and they need continual upkeep, is a simple way to say it. So in-service training is basically what I do, but across a variety of domains.
That's really interesting. And how is it working in the US versus working in Korea?
That might be a hard question to answer, because I work in a military institute. Yes, it's civilian military, opposed to just being a civilian context within Korea, but both contexts are higher, they're both accredited universities, right? So in Korea, I worked at a higher education accredited university, and I do the same here in the US. I think maybe the difference primarily is for me as a teacher trainer, in-service and pre-service trainer, and then also for the faculty that are platform classroom teachers every day, the demand for results. I think that in Korea, we are very, very familiar with how much students need to perform, right? They need to perform on tests. The difference in the institute or the university I work at is that they actually need not to perform. Yeah, they need to perform on a test, of course, but they don't need to perform on a test. They actually need to perform. They need language proficiency at a higher level than you and I are speaking at right now. We are speaking at a lower proficiency and lower social cultural level, and in terms of social political different. We're speaking, although we might be grammatical and they might be grammatical, in terms of what language proficiency means, in terms of cognitive processing, intercultural interaction, understanding multiple cultures, they need to do that much less than a university student does in Korea. And so I think for me, the difference is time pressure. Okay. And I would have never said that 10 years ago, because I thought Korea was crazy. but the demand on the service members here is much more, but they achieve. Why? Because of the beauty of the brain, right?
Right.
The beauty of the brain.
That's really interesting. Do you have a different relationship with your students in the US than you did in Korea?
Absolutely. We are civilians, and we work with military faculty as well. So we have civilian faculty, military faculty, and all our students are enlisted. They're service members. So our interaction is purely the classroom. There is very little informal interaction with them, even in the hallway, so to speak. If there are needs to attend to an individual's personal needs, we have a chain of command that we can go through the military to deal with, that they can deal with. The military will deal with them. We purely, because of the stakes and the high demands of the students, we don't have social coffee time with them, for example. But that might sound strange to the readership or the listener on the Korean side, because I know how we interact with our students in Korea. It doesn't mean that we don't know our students. It doesn't mean that we don't embrace our students. It doesn't mean that we don't engage with our students. It's just a very more kind of, let's say, rigid professional sort of interaction, but there is caring.
Oh, sure.
Hug.
Sure.
Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And I'm curious, how much leeway do you have in your curriculum? Do you get to do any curriculum design, or is there like a preset curriculum you're supposed to follow?
There is a set curriculum that's a pretty lockstep curriculum, like Korea, where the curriculum is set for an an ultimate exam for achievement. But as the Institute has developed over decades, just like as Korea has developed over decades in foreign language teaching and the understanding, there is an Institute policy that's been longstanding where there is an ability for teachers to diversify or diverge or be creative in terms of meeting those objectives. So instead of just sitting down and doing X page, whatever, page 9 and 10, the teacher may take a very innovative approach and create a project to reach those same objectives. I will say now with teleworking, where we all are teaching virtually, the Institute has even provided more support for teachers to do the same thing, where we might need to reach an objective, but we've had so much screen time, students can't be on the screen for 6 or 8 hours a day, that they can go away. So yeah, there is a lot of flexibility, and the current practice of foreign language education is available and implemented. Yeah, we have a lot of flexibility.
That sounds really cool, actually. Very nice. I'm curious also on that, kind of along the same lines. Since you're teaching military personnel, I imagine there's some, speaking of divergence in maybe political beliefs and maybe, I know I can be very vocal with some of my students in Korea. They'll ask about something in the US and I will tell them exactly what I think, but I'm curious how you handle like what might be more delicate social issues, let's say, that I know in the US are hot.
Yeah,
right?
no, definitely. Just for the membership, I will say that we have a variety of schools. Each school or some schools have multiple languages, but we have a variety of critical languages that we teach in various schools where I work and across the US and across the world. There's one in Korea and Osan, and I know them well. So the faculty are aware. I know what you're asking about, and I want to answer not to the general public. I want to answer to the Korea membership. We have a variety of languages that we teach, and of course, within those variety of languages that are taught, we have different past, present, and possible future polemic or controversial issues, right? But I will say that because we are a diverse faculty working together, where we have a variety of people working together across the Institute or across the globe, or just even in one building. I mean, you might have a Palestinian, you might have, you know, we have so many people that are working together as a team, as humans, as educators, that the issue of, I don't know what you would say, promoting an agenda is not really an issue, because we, even though maybe through the news we might seem diametrically opposed, but every day we come together and we are working together. We are working and living as Americans, even if we might not have American citizenship, but we're working and raising our families and doing everything within this context. And we're working for a particular employer. And I mean, the personal agendas really don't come up really much, you know. I mean, I'm sure they do under the rug, but it's really not an issue that you could have two people that you would, as Lindsay, assume that they might go in the classroom with opposing views, but they go in the classroom just to teach language. Yes, they have to teach social, cultural, political, but yeah, I mean, I think the same thing happens in Korea too, right? Where there's certain issues that might happen and teachers have opinions, but they go in as professionals. They don't choose a side. Do you know what I mean?
Sure.
I think it's really just about being a professional educator. Does that make sense?
But the thing is, I mean, I can definitely say, see, not telling your students, oh yeah, you know, Trump sucks or whatever your personal.
No, of course, but I know you're talking beyond that.
Right. Even your choice of like the topics you cover and the way you teach them all kind of play into that. But yeah, I was specifically mostly interested in the political discussions that might or might not happen in that context.
I think that the choice of political or social cultural or whatever, if we're moving beyond the curriculum, which is a set curriculum, we are dealing with authentic material and we're dealing with authentic topics, right? Just like any classroom. So it's not up to the instructor to choose, because society brings that to the classroom, right?
Right.
So
You
it's not
facilitate.
like the teacher is being selective to talk about an apple or an orange. No, there's something happening about plums, and plums are being imposed on the classroom. So, and then the teacher addresses it like as a professional. I mean, you understand what I mean, right?
Oh yeah, definitely. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I mean.
Oops. Kara, I think you just muted yourself.
Sorry. Yes. So my last comment was, I think that your question was valid as an outsider, but I do think my answer is that we all deal with these same things. Just like in Korea, we have to deal with North Korea. We have, you know, there's a lot of issues of people that have, you know, their family sympathizers, you know, there's lots of things. And every nation, when we go in the classroom, we have to deal with very sensitive issues that they might be past, present, or upcoming. You know, could be Dokdo, the island, right? You know, these things, right? Exactly. You know, but my summary is, I think in the same way, every educator addresses and navigates those social, cultural, political topics in the way they know is best.
All right, that's very That's cool. Actually, I'm really glad to hear that. It's a very similar situation, no matter
Yeah,
the context.
yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, we could go to China, we go to Turkey. There'll be
Right.
topics everywhere, right? Right.
Right.
That's
Exactly.
classroom.
Actually, let's get back to your very diverse faculty and all the different people you get to meet. Now, you've collaborated multiple times with scholars in South America. You've collaborated with Korean co-authors, and now you have, you know, a very diverse group of faculty members that you collaborate with. Um, can you tell us a little bit about cross-cultural collaboration? Like how did you get started with it, and what issues have come up, if any, or what are the challenges of collaborating across cultures?
I'll start with the easy stuff. How did it get started? I have no idea, because my parents created a very rich world for me that was privileged, and I just maintained it. So yes, I'm used to country movement and collaboration. Second, I think that collaboration for me, I mean, I wouldn't say that an introvert wouldn't be. I don't want to label um, um, people, but I'm very gregarious, and so collaboration is easy, whether it's organizing the neighborhood to take out stuff for a recycling campaign or writing an article across a couple of countries. It's my nature. Third, I think that people that are educators are also just naturally interacting with people, right? Whether it be their students or their educators, sorry, their colleagues or their parents of their students or whatever. Educators just naturally collaborate. So I would say that I think that, maybe for an educator, the issue is time. It's not that they don't have the ability or the interest or the desire. They just don't have the time to connect, to read, to talk, to how it goes. So I think that if I'm going to make number 5 point would be that it has to be a deliberate decision that you carve out time. And for some people, it might only be 5 minutes a week because they have too many kids, they have too many things.
Mm-hmm.
For other people, it might be 1 hour a week. It just depends on who you are and where you are in your development. But I think that for other people, number 4 recommendation, number 5 is what I do, is it's a deliberate scheduling. Although it might not be a systematic scheduling, it might not be every day at 8 a.m. I mean, but I do carve out time because that's something I like to do and energizes me. But I also understand that maybe somebody else, as a great educator, isn't energized by doing that. Maybe they're energized by carving out 1 hour at 5 a.m. in the gym.
Right.
And they need that 1 hour to be the best educator that they can. So what I do to energize me, or what I do to schedule my life or recommend to others to connect with others, it might not be the right thing, right? We're unique, moving individuals. Even what used to energize us before COVID-19 doesn't energize us now, right?
Right.
So it's not, I would say to COTESO members, it's not really about what you do. It's about an awareness of who you are and what you want to do. And once you have an awareness of what you want to do, then there can be the final step of making steps or small steps, small steps, sorry, like a baby, small steps to making changes in your chaotic life and demands
Mm.
to do what you want to do, right? Because you're probably doing 90% you want, but there's this little bit that you want to do, but you haven't done, right?
Right, right.
I mean, that's all of us. All of us, we only have 24 hours. If you have kids and you have, I mean, we all know. I don't need to explain to the COTISL membership. They know.
Yeah, we can definitely relate to that. Are you doing any collaboration right now? Any collaborative research?
I am fortunate. I work in an Arabic school, so Alhamdulillah. Praise be to God. It's not really a religious saying. It's just everywhere in Arabic language. I just finished some very simple things. I finished a co-author book review for the month of August, and then the previous month of July. One is the July month was with a former TESOL member that I happened to meet through the grace of academic gods about 8 years ago. Suzanne Barthez.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Oh,
And we've done a lot together, and we wrote a book review. In July, I wrote another book review with a newly eager, full-on academic PhD, but never has time, and she just wanted to stop. So we wrote something in August. And I have a colleague that we did a project, maybe kind of like an extra research project, looking at motivation and autonomy in over action research over 2 years, and we kind of put it together. It took a long time, but we just submitted to a journal, and we'll see what happens.
that's very cool. And speaking of being overcommitted, wait, did you mention that you organized a neighborhood recycling campaign?
I organized. Well, this is before COVID-19. I will say, since March of 2020, a lot of my duties have been eliminated due to the state of California and the governor, which is good. Because you can't, you know what I mean. But no, I mean, literally, yes. I mean, I'm a gregarious person, so I am involved in my community. I'm involved in my work. I'm, the circle. Sorry, go out. COVID-19 has reduced my circles.
Oh, I'm
That's
sure.
good.
And that's good. How did you get involved in the Korea TESOL Journal? And actually, I should explain for anybody who doesn't know, Kara is the editor-in-chief of the Korea TESOL Journal and has been for quite a while now, I believe.
Maybe 6 years, maybe 7, and I love it. If I go back to maybe 2006, 2007, when I was president in Korea, present, not president, meaning present, living, residing, and working in Korea, the previous editor of the English, the tech, Jake Kimball, was stepping down, and I had a great colleague, mentor, I don't know, who recommended me to kind of take over. And it was a great experience. I said yes. And I think maybe for 5, 6 years, I don't know.
Oh, wow.
I didn't pick a time, doesn't matter. I worked with Dave Schaefer after Jake Kimball trained me, and I put out the tech with David Schaefer. After I left Korea in 2010, I put out maybe 2 or 3 issues, but my connection to Korea was far. So maybe a lot of the authors may be Korean, but they were based in the U.S. And it was a mutual decision that maybe I wasn't the best, editor, where I was situated in my current career. And so I was, moving on. I did my other things. I did some other editing things. And I think in 2000, I don't know. Like 6 years ago, I don't know, it's 2020, do the math. I don't know, about 6, 7 years ago, there was an advertisement on the Korea TESOL Journal and the website and, Korea TESOL News that comes out, the update, that they were looking for an editor. And I had already been involved with the previous editor of the Korea TESOL Journal, and I had some background. Although I wasn't editor, I was, indirectly connected. And I just reached out to Dave Schaefer saying, I know I'm in the US.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think? And we had dialogue, and I put in application, and there we go. It's been a fantastic thing for me to maintain my connection to Korea TESOL. Second, it has been a professional development for me, in that I'm a very global person. Like, I'm like, but when you're when you're doing journal editing, like, you have to focus. So I've really stretched my ability in terms of looking at, let's just call detail oriented. It's more complex than that, but we'll talk about it like that. Educators are smart. And then the third thing is, I just love reading, even the papers that maybe are not suited for Korea TESOL Journal. I just love reading, because I learn what's going on in young minds. I learn, I'm not old, but I'm older. And I learn what's going on in the literature, what's going on in the young minds of people, whether they be Indonesia or Korea or Japan or whatever. It's the best thing to sit down and read a paper, even if it's a horribly written paper, meaning not English, but in terms of everything we get is well written in terms of English, but it takes skill to write an academic paper. Even if it's not a well-written academic paper, I still come away with, I learned something, right?
Right.
I love it. Dave Schaefer, I love you. Korea TESOL, I love you.
And we really appreciate all the work you do for that. I've definitely, you got the Co-TESOL President's Award a few years ago during my first term as president, I believe, and we definitely, you deserved it.
Now, and now we're going through Scopus. For those that don't know, we sort of in the first third of the process of maybe a 3-part process, where we're trying to get accredited by a larger external international accrediting body. For those that maybe don't know the specifics, Scopus is the SCOP. They can look it up. So we're going through the process to maybe further legitimatize the journal.
I know a lot of people are really excited about the possibility of us getting into Scopus, actually, because that means they can maybe get money from their universities for publishing with us. It's an indicator of quality, so that if somebody sees you're published in KTJ, you can, be a little bit even more proud of that accomplishment.
Yeah. And I am a copy editor and a reviewer. I have 2 roles: a copy editor and a reviewer for TESOL, Mexico TESOL.
Oh, wow.
From a previous love of my life, long before the other Korea life. And TESOL, about a year and a half or 2 years ago, actually went through the process. I witnessed the process, although I was not fully involved in the process, and they got accredited. Okay. And so I have that support of their full editor, of kind of navigating the process. But yet I have to do it. She can't do it for me, right? So, right. But I understand the Scopus process thanks to a former life of mine.
So if somebody were to ask, if somebody were to ask about the timeline, what should we tell them?
Good question. The current deadline for me was this Sunday, which is today for me. It's your Monday. I think within 48 hours, I need to give an update of the first. They have a pre-list, of. They have you self-judge yourself, right? let's just say your heart rate, your weight, they give you all these basics, right? So I did all that with Jake Kimball. Well, I did it. I submitted to Jake Kimball and David Schaefer. David Schaefer gave some very good feedback. It was supposed to be back today, but it's very simple. 24 hours, 40 hours, I can give it back to him. And then we can submit it to the actual Scopus review. The Scopus review will look at what we've done or not done. I think on all the parameters that are provided on the Scopus, let's say, self-checklist, I think we are clear on most of them. I think the ones that we're not yet up to par on are not procedural issues or standardization issues. There's things that have changed with respect to things in the last 2 to 3 years where we have to have like, what do you call, like IODs, like we have to have
DOI. Yeah, I remember.
DOI. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, in Spanish it's the reverse. Sorry, I use it with Mexico. So there's certain things. So basically, it's really a matter of me going back and looking at maybe the last 2 years, because we don't have to look at everything, and then just having a checklist for John Phillips and us, he and I dialoguing, because we meet all the major criteria. Yeah, we might get a C- on a few things, but we don't fail. It's the more modern stuff in the last 2 years in terms of how things are indexed, how things are accessed when you run a, what do you call it? Like you run a search or whatever. So, I mean, I have a little scrap sheet that's going on, old school. I mean, and then once that scrap sheet is kind of finalized and I have a clear idea and I can give some direct bullet points to John Phillips, I mean, I think he can update maybe the last 2 years and insert the required material, information, I should say, into the journal website. And we don't need to go back years.
Right.
We just
That's good.
2 years. I mean, I'm going back in my experience, I'm reporting back, but I don't think we even need that far back.
Oh, that's very cool. Well, it sounds like we're
trying.
Yeah, that's exciting. That's very exciting.
People that don't know me will be like, why is she so animated?
Well, because you're just an animated person. That's why we love you, among other reasons.
But yeah, no, but I thank you for asking about it, because it then, it makes it more contextualized, that it's with the membership that wants it. It's not just a conversation between, the group list that I have. And of course I'm dedicated to the group list, but it's nice that you brought it into membership.
Oh, I know everybody is very excited about it. And, we love our publications. So it's really nice to get that kind of recognition for them. Can you tell us a little bit, as a journal editor, what do you look for when somebody submits an article? Like, what recommendations would you make to our members if they want to submit something to KTJ? What are some common mistakes that new authors might make?
Well, obviously, beautiful, effective question for listener. So I might say the process of how it works, and then what we're looking for. The application, the manuscript comes in and it's received by me and or David Schaefer, and then it goes out to our peer review and then comes back to us, and then we, it's the typical process that most people would be familiar with. I think that I might address that question in saying where some authors fall, because it's not everybody knows what they should do, but some authors, it's like, but I tried so hard, why didn't I make it? Sometimes we have, whether they be domestic authors, very rarely, it's usually overseas authors, but sometimes the findings are not related to the Korean English language teaching context. So it doesn't mean that you have to be situated at, let's take higher education. You don't have to be situated in a university in Korea. You could be at a university in Texas or in Indonesia or Japan, for example. But you need to strongly use the literature review, the literature of your local context, your literature from the Korean context, obviously synergize, make a nice synergy. And then when you get to your findings and discussion, to blend that into a discussion. That ultimately, whatever you find has to be contextualized within the Korean language, English language teaching, right, on the ground. So you might find something beautiful. And we've had authors do it. Some of them, you know, do it beautifully. They might be in Iran, and one author, he's published, he's happy, and then he probably talks to his friend, and then he submits something else. No, because you have to kind of make an argument about how the implications are for the Korean context. And I think that even for authors that are in the Korean context and they think they have their work here, you know, I'm on the ground, I'm in Korea, but what are the implications beyond? Like, I mean, yeah, you're a third grade classroom. That's fantastic. What are the implications for K through 12 or elementary, right? Basically, I think my recommendation to anyone submitting is you probably have a valuable piece of work, but you need to think about the reader on the other side of the screen, reading the e-journal, or the one reading the hard copy. When they read that, what can they take away? My other recommendation is don't be scared or afraid or reluctant or I don't know to submit something. You might think, well, I'm only an MA student, or oh, I'm just a kid, or I'm just too old, or whatever people think. And I'm not an academic, so I'm not suitable to submit. We are a mentoring journal, and I am an I'm a reviewer in 3 or 4 mentoring journals that are like Korea TESOL. Korea TESOL happened to be the editor. A mentoring journal is that we are not an SSI journal. We are not we're not a top tier journal. We are a journal that if you have something valid, we'll work with you. We won't rewrite your paper for you, but we will sit with you. I mean, we'll either get another author to review, another editor to review, or I sit with people, track changes. We're a mentoring journal. The point is that we need to develop our COTISO membership. We need to develop our ability to have research scholars within COTISO, and we also need to develop our journal. So if you think you're not ready to publish, submit something. That's my bing, bing, bing.
Oh, that's really nice. I love that, you know, you really emphasize the cultivating, you know, our members.
Yeah. We're not TESOL Journal. We're not TESOL Inc. We're not whatever. Pick your top journal in the world. We're not there. Yes, we are an academic, reputable journal. We're not publishing whatever, but you need, in order to be able to later in your career be able to possibly publish in the TESOL journal or another higher level journal, where do you start? You need your local support to train you. And we are our local support, right? That's what we do.
Absolutely. Actually, I notice we're just about out of time, and I don't
Oh,
know.
I just saw. Perfect. Oh, you're like 1 minute. You're perfect
Well,
timing. I love you.
is there anything that I missed, though? Is there anything that, like, I had suggested might be a topic that you wanted to talk about, or anything that we
Oh, I
started
don't think
talking about
so.
before we started recording?
No, no, I don't think so. I think I have maybe two closing sentences. The people that will watch this video, I really appreciate that you still consider me as part of COTISL, even though you may not have witnessed me physically as part of COTISL in the membership. And second, whether it be for Korea TESOL Journal or for whatever, etc. COTISL members reach out to me all the time through Facebook saying, I don't know you, we never met, but. And I help them find jobs, I help them find whatever they, that's what membership is. We're a group, and so even though you may never have reached out to me, reach out to me if you think I might have an answer for you, even if it's just a vacation resort in California.
Do you have a vacation resort in California?
No, no, I don't.
We might have to.
I guess facetious.
Well,
But
and restaurant recommendations. I know you could give us some good restaurant
yeah. But you don't, Lindsay. I have so many COTISL people that reach out to me and they're like, "Oh, I have this job, I have this opportunity, I have to buy a house, I have to rent," and I'm like, "Okay, yeah," but we've never spoken and we will never meet. But it's just because of COTISL.
Right. Well, we've got that teachers helping teachers motto, and I think you embody that beautifully. So,
Bingo.
well, thank you.
Okay, enjoy your Monday, and to the membership that will be watching later, enjoy your Monday evening, Tuesday evening, Wednesday evening, and thank you, Lindsay. I appreciate talking with you.
Kara, hang on 1 second while I stop the recording. I've got one final question for you after we wrap up.
Perfect. Sure, not a problem.
But in the meantime, thank you very much, and thank you all for watching.